So object oriented has multiple concepts, but the very important one of those is called inheritance. Inheritance says if I do have a parent class and if I am creating a child class out of it, my child class would automatically inherit the properties of parent. And by those property, I mean what kind of class it is, other than I can say, for example, whether it's a normal or AMDP class. Other than that, its attributes, or I can say its methods, everything would be inherited from parent class. Okay. That is a behavior of a child class when it comes to an inheritance. So we would try to incorporate the same over here in a OOPS. So let's just try creating a parent class over here. So I'll just go over here, just say, for example, I just want to create an ABAP class. So I do have it over here. Okay, so here I'll just say, for example, set B22, and here I'll just create a parent class. I'll just go next over here, and I'll just select a transport request that I would be using for that. So if you see, I do have a skeleton ready for a class. What does it say is that the name of the class is ZB22. It's a public class. It's a final class. So when I say a final, it means you cannot inherit it anywhere. You would come back to it in some time. Then it says it would create a public instance of that. Then let's just say I do have a multiple sections over here, public, private, protected. That is something we already discussed. Now let's just go with a conversion of this class to AMDP. Okay, so to convert a class into AMDP, I can say convert class to AMDP class. To convert this class into AMDP class, what we would be doing, we would be just passing the interface over here saying IF AMDP marker and HDB. So we implemented this particular class over here, and if you see now I am not getting any sort of error, and this class has now been converted into a AMDP class. Now my next step is I would be defining certain methods, and I am more interested now in a AMDP method because normal methods are anyway something that we already know. So I can say I would be defining certain sort of methods. So I'll just say okay, methods, and let's just go in the same direction that we are going. So I'll just say okay, get PO data, and here I am creating the method as a part of parent class. So I am just writing a PO over here. I'm expecting that it would just import a set of just a company code from the input, and it would return me the set of purchase order. Let's just say TTPO data, and we do have already a type declared, so I'll just use that. I'll just go over here and say I do have a type if you want to share that. So here I do have. So let me just copy this type declaration. So okay, so I do have a type declared. The issue over here, the TTPO data unknown. It's just saying that, doesn't matter. It's just saying that because it seems that system has not identified it yet. Now system is able to recognize the TTPO data. Okay, now if you see, we are getting one more error saying we have just give the definition. Okay, so we have just given the definition for that particular method, but the system is not able to find a implementation. So in a world of object oriented, okay, there are multiple type of classes. I'm not talking of a normal class and AMDP class. When it comes to a type of classes, I could have a normal class or and a abstract class, and I can say a interface. Okay, so when I say a normal class is something which is very normal, which would be having a methods plus attributes, and these methods and attributes would be having their definition plus implementation. So both of these would be having their definition and implementation portions. When it comes to a abstract class, definitely it would also be having a methods and attributes, its definition and implementation, but minimum one or more attributes or methods or both would not be having their implementation defined. So for example, I do have this particular method over here and I don't want to define the implementation. I mean, when I say a get pure data, what the system should do? What should be the logic that should get executed? What would be the logic that should get executed whenever this method is getting triggered? Okay, that is something. If I don't specify over here, then I can consider that this method is abstract. It means it is giving me just an abstract. Okay, it would have some sort of input parameter, some sort of output parameter, but I don't know how it would behave. So the actual behavioral definition would be missing. Okay, and when it comes to interface, it would have the method's definition but not the implementation. It would just have the definition of the method but not the implementation. None of the method would be having the implementation. It would be just an give an overview of how it would be looking alike. For example, if I say a car, of course you would be knowing if it's a car, there would be certain capacity of how many people can sit in that, whether it would be a petrol or diesel, what kind of car it is, then what is the average it is providing, likewise. But you won't be having exact information for any of those. So those attributes and what it can perform, the method, the speed and everything would be there, but just as an abstract, and that is what we can call it as an interface. So here what we are intended to do is we are just intended to perform just the methods definition over here and not the implementation. So to convert a method into a abstract method and to convert a class into abstract class, what I have to do over here, I'll just write okay abstract over here. So along with the method, I'll just say okay abstract. So this method would be converted into abstract, which is fine. Now if you say I'm getting one more error saying abstract methods can only be defined in abstract classes, it means I have to define this class as an abstract. So after the create public, I'll just say okay abstract. It seems I am good. Okay, but now the question is how I can define the the child class of it, because if you see what I have given over here, it just say it's a public class and it's a final class. So when it's a final class, you cannot inherit it anywhere. So that's why I have to remove this final, saying okay this class is an abstract but it's not final. I would come up with a different version of it. I would inherit it in a child class, so I would enhance this for sure. So I'll just activate this. So this becomes my parent class, which is an abstract class which contains the method definition but does not contain any sort of implementation of that method. Okay, so I do have this class. Next thing which I will be having over here is I am interested in defining the implementation for this. So I'll just create a child class out of this. I'll just go and just say, or I can also say it over here. Define a ABAP class over here. And here we would be saying, okay, ZB22 AMDP, but this would be a child class. So I'll just say child class for AMDP. What would be my parent class? So I'll just say a super class. I'll be specifying over here. I'll just go next and just say finish. So we do have a child class created out of the parent class. Now, if you see, I do have an error over here saying the redefinition. So whenever you are having a parent class, which is a abstract class, and you are creating a child class out of that, the all undefined, or we can say, sorry, or all non-implemented method should have their implementation method implemented in the child class. If the child class is also not implementing that, then the child class should also be an abstract class. But here I don't want an abstract class. Instead, I want a class which has all the implementation. So if you see, I do have an error saying one of its method get PO data does not have any implementation. So we have to define that. So how I can do that? I can maybe just as a shortcut, I can just click over here and just say add implementation. So it just did two things. If you see, it just say get PO data P and the redefinition. It does not specify any sort of parameters. So when I don't specify any sort of parameter, it would just get it from the parent first, and the implementation is also defined. Now I'm good to go. I'll just go over here and just define the implementation for the same. I'll just say, okay, by database procedure. For HANA database, I am saying language I'll be following over here would be called an SQL script. Currently, I am only interested in performing all the read-only operation. This is something what I did. Okay. Now, when it's an AMDP method, I can't have the body parameter, or you can say body of an AMDP method cannot be empty. I'll just say get PO data over here. How I can do that? It's very simple. Okay, I'll just pick the name of the returning parameter. It just say ETPO data from here. And here I'll be just interested in fetching the set of parameter. I'll just say EBLN, BUKRS, BSART, BSTYP, ERNAM, ADATE. From EKKO, we would be doing that. And where we would be passing the filter clause saying BUKRS equal to the input parameter that we are getting over here, saying P underscore BUKRS. Here, if you see, we discussed that earlier that whatever table or an internal table, whatever table or functions or methods, anything you are using inside a AMDP method which is not local should be defined using a using clause. So here I'll just say, okay, I am using EKKO over here, and I will just save this. Okay, so I do have my method ready. I am getting the data. But if you remember, we have discussed one more thing over here. We have discussed that whenever it comes to a particular normal AMDP method, okay, it is what we can say a client dependent. Okay, sorry, it's a client independent. So ultimately what it would do is it would give you all the respective information from all the clients. It won't say, okay, if you are getting the information, or we can say executing the program in a particular class, I'll just give you the information only from that relevant class. No, the system is not that wise. It won't help you out in that manner. Instead, it would try to get the data from all the relevant, we can say, from all the relevant clients. For example, I am currently in S4H 800. So it would give me data from 800. If there is any 810, it would give me all the data. from there as well. And for that, what we have to do is we should have some sort of variable which is called a client variable, which would give me the current client. Yesterday, or we can say in the earlier session, we were trying to have a particular importing parameter for the method, but that's not a, suggested way. Instead, in AMDP, we do also have certain ways with the help of which I can get the information of a current client, the language, and the, let's just say, current user. So it means in AMDP as well, we can derive the session variables. So the question is how I can derive the session variables in AMDP. Okay, let's just say I want to give out whatever session variable I'm getting, just to see, okay, what all I am having as a part of my output. For that, let's just define some sort of session variables over here. I'll just say this method is having few more exporting parameter. For example, I'll just say EV current client, and its type is I am saying something called SAP mandate. Another thing I am interested over here is a, let's just say, current user. And here I am just saying, okay, let's just say SAP uname. So uname is my client. And here I'll just say EV, for example, a login language. I want to also identify in which language the user has actually logged in. So I'll just define the type as a SAP language. Okay. So I do have few more parameters defined as a part of this parent method, which are saying these are exporting parameters and it has certain type. You can populate this. So I'll just say, okay, let me just get the values of session variables. So I'll just say, okay. I'll just say get the session variables. Here I'll just define EV current client. So what would be my current client over here? For that, we have a variable, or we can say system context, which would give us the information regarding the particular session. I'll just say, for example, session context over here. And here I'll just say, I want the current client. So when I say a current client, I'll just pass the client over here. So it would give me the information of a current client. What other things do we have? I do have the current user as well. I'll just say, okay, session context over here. And here I'll just say application user. Next thing I do have over here is called a login language I'm interested in. So I just pass this and just say so I got the session variables defined. So I have these three variables which would give me the values of those session variables. And now if I want information coming from only the current client which is executing this, how I can do that? I can just say mandate equal to the current client over here. And I'll just specify and over here. So it would say, give me all the purchase order where my client is the one which I specified and my company code is the one which I'm getting in the input. And I should be able to derive all the respective information. If I just say activate this, if I copy the name of this particular class, go in my consumption program, I do have this. I'll just comment out the information I had earlier. I'll just pass the new name of my, yeah. I'll just pass the new name of my class. So I do have my class over here, and this class would ultimately be able to provide me the information whichever I was looking for. So I'll just say, okay, call method get PO data. I'll just call that method saying get PO data over here. It expects PBUKRS in the input and gives me a certain set of output which I am interested in, saying PO data, what was the name that we used earlier, because it's also specified in ALV. Then I want a current client as well. Also interested in what is the current user system is identifying, and also the login language. Okay, so the ALV work is anyway done because that is something we did in the earlier session. I am more interested in the session variable. So I can say show session variables in message. I'll just say message LV current client. I'll just say, oops, it's some method I specified by mistake. Type here, I'll just say I 1 2 3. I'll just say current client, user, and the language. If I just say activate this particular class, or we can say activate this particular method or a program, sorry. I'll just execute this, and if you see, it would prompt me for my input. I'll just pass 1710 over here, just say execute. And if you see, I'm getting first 800, which is my current client. Okay, if I just say enter, I am getting my user ID, which is S4 ABAP 22. If I just say enter, I am getting E as a English as a language, and I'm also getting the set of data I requested. Okay, so I do have each and everything coming from my method, and I have not written any sort of code on my application server to fetch the data. Instead, I am just taking the user input, PBUKRS, instantiating an object, and just calling the method, which is an AMDP method. It means it's a database procedure, and everything would get executed on my database server, and I'll get all this relevant information I'm looking for, and I can directly present it to my end user. Okay, so it means I'm executing each and everything now on the database layer.